Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome back to Monster Energy Supercross 2, the official video game, where today we're going to be playing my replica rendition of the 2019 Daytona Supercross in-game. Trying this one out, trying to take on the AI this week for some odd reason. I'm one corner into this race already, and I regret my decision, so that was a dumb one, but I think that this track honestly just looks like better to play at night and kind of, you know, gives it that Daytona vibe. This track was pretty damn difficult to make just because, you know, Daytona is gigantic, and unfortunately the stadium that they give us in this game just barely isn't big enough to go from like one end to the other as it would in real life. It's pretty close. There's a couple things that like you'll notice I had to kind of not do. For example, down here I can't really do the mogul section because I just ran out of space, but I still tried to make it work in the areas that I could, and I don't know, I think all in all it actually ended out not too bad. My friend Zach had actually made a rendition of this track as well and named it SYS Daytona 19, which I told him he could do, so definitely check that one out as well. But I just figured I'd give it a go myself and try it out, and this is what I came up with. This one, by the way, actually is called 19 Daytona and then a dash and then SYS, so just to be a little different. You can try out mine, you can try out his, it's totally up to you. I just, like I said, wanted to try my own, and this is what I came up with on the fly. But yeah, as with usual with these videos, what I'm doing here is playing this track in order to talk about what happened in real life this past weekend. Like what went down, what's the chaos, what's going on in Monster Energy Supercross. And yeah, this is man, I don't know, where should I start? Well, number one is someone commented on one of my videos on Friday and said I was an idiot for saying Eli Tomac is still a title contender. And I mean, like, look, here's how I put it. There's 4 guys that are still within 1 race distance of this championship. That means all of them are technically speaking still title contenders. When we went to Vegas in 2011 and there was 4 guys that still had a chance to win the title, some things were astronomical, but they still had a chance to win the title. And if you think it's like way outlandish for me to assume that someone that's 22 points down could win the title even at the last round, well, Jordan Smith was like, what, 14 points behind or something crazy like that? Or no, I'm sorry, Adam Cianciarulo in 2017 was like 14 or 16 points behind Osborne going into the finale of the East-West Showdown down there, and he almost won the thing. So that's where I leave Tomac on this list of title contenders, and now he literally is the closest title contender that exists to Cooper Webb. After winning this weekend, pulls the gap that was at 22 points away from Webb down to 19, because Webb still finished second, but because of Musquin still not able to get it done really anywhere, and Roczen having a terrible race, now moves Tomac into the 2 spot in the championship. So he's definitely the closest competition Webb has. I would say that this is kind of out of the norm, I feel, because like Kenny really had a pretty bad race and he shouldn't have. And then for some reason, Marvin just has lost his ability to pass and lost his ability to stay consistent. And we're kind of falling into this like weird echelon of, you know, Webb is just riding consistent, Tomac's having to ride his nuts off, and for some reason Roczen and Musquin are just not themselves. I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out myself. Like, I can't point to one thing that they're doing wrong, because especially the last 2 weeks, I would say Musquin probably looked the best of anybody the last 2 weeks, and he's walking away with 2/3. So like, that is blowing my mind, because most of the time when someone is the best rider on the track and they get a good start, they tend to win the race. I mean, Musquin was all day long a second or more faster than everybody in practice. I think the thing that kind of screwed up his momentum for the night show was going down in the heat with Webb in the second corner and then having to fight his way through, and he got an okay gate pick. It wasn't great, but I think, you know, he probably obviously wanted better. And I don't know necessarily that affected, you know, it didn't really affect his start. He still started with those guys, but mentality-wise, when you're on top of your game all day long and you don't go out and win your heat, it can kind of change the flow of things a little bit. I mean, we talked I feel like everybody has talked forever about how Chad Reed used to never qualify fastest in practice. He'd always be 6th, 7th, hell, way down the order sometimes, and then he'd go out and win his heat race, and suddenly it was game on. Like, he was gonna either win the main event or finish on the podium, no problem, even if he was well off the pace in practice. So, you know, the heat races are mostly useless, except for when it comes to like maintaining a level of confidence or gaining a level of confidence back before going into the main event. I felt like in this race, I thought it would matter more gate pick wise, because it seemed like it was a big deal like all day long, with like the whole shot coming pretty much always from the very far inside gate, and Musquin ending up about 8 out. I thought that would be a hindrance, but he actually did a pretty good job of getting a good start. You obviously had Tomac, Webb, Roxon, those guys were all down the inside, and I think, you know, that carried us into them getting good starts as well. And I really think we would have had a really great, like, you know, 4 or 5 rider battle at the front for a while, had Roxon not fallen in the second corner. I don't know, like, in my opinion, if you're gonna have a sand section like that, where it's like super blown out and all that, I don't know if I would put it right there, like right out of the first corner, essentially. It just gave guys nowhere to go, because to me, it's almost like putting a wall jump in the second turn is putting sand, because like these guys have to come to like a complete stop, and then everybody gets sand blasted, and then it creates these gigantic gaps. Like, racing wise, sand in the second corner produces terrible racing, because it immediately opens up space from leaders to second and so on and so forth. And as we saw at Daytona, it basically caused a crash in every race. So I wasn't super a fan of that sand where it was. Like, I don't necessarily mind if they would have, you know, maybe if they put the sand that exact same section but right before the finish line where it was this week, I would have been okay with that, because like the finish line, you know, is basically the same section but backwards. You know, they only had 6 corners, so you draw the same section of track on the other side with a sand section, and I think it would have worked better. But who knows? I guess I never won 5 Supercross titles, so I shouldn't have any room to talk about this. However, I was a little, like, I guess kind of surprised that Kenny's charge to the field stalled. When he was like 11th halfway through the main, I was like, oh, you know, he'll get to Joey, he'll finish like 5th, no problem, he's got the fitness, etc., etc. And it kind of stalled out. And I guess maybe what that really shows us now, and not that it wasn't proof in the pudding before, but just Kenny's never going to be physically 100%, even when it comes to stamina, I don't think. Like, I think that his arm injury has taken it out of him enough that, you know, he's having to compensate with his other arm, or, you know, use his legs a lot more, and it's causing, you know, added stress to his complete body, and the way that he has to ride is so much different that I just don't think that he can really last full sprint anymore for 20 laps, and probably never will again, which is unfortunate. But I mean, injuries are a part of the sport, and, you know, there's guys that have gone through knee injuries, Dean Wilson, and he seems to never be 100% because he can't grip the bike the same way he used to, and things like that. So, but yeah, I really expected Kenny to at least get to like 6th, kind of the same way Eli had been doing. But 8th is still a good ride to be down in the first corner and pick yourself up and have to go through this field, which is still pretty deep this deep into the season. You know, it's not like Daytona last year. We were missing Kenny, Barsha, Seeley, shoot, tons of people I feel like last year. And so this year it was, you know, still a lot of the same guys on the track. Obviously we're missing Malcolm, Barsha's out this year too, but I think that it is a much deeper field at the moment to go through. Abnormally so this late in the season. Normally there's the injuries starting to pile up, and it hasn't really been the case this year, at least. So I guess that's a positive, obviously, but for Kenny, I guess in this case would be a negative, because normally there would be more injuries and less people to have to go through than he had to deal with. But out front, Tomac, I think, did exactly what I expected him to do. I mean, Daytona's always been a good track. Tomac needed badly to win this race, and he got it. He won the race. So like, that's that. I don't know. Like, yeah, Tomac is still a title contender to me. Call me crazy, but that is the cold hard facts of it, because at any point in time, 2017 and 2018, Eli Tomac is going to emerge And if he takes this momentum into next week, maybe he's clawing away more points from Webb. I mean, Webb has been so solid at figuring out how to, at the very least, finish second when he's not going to win races. He hasn't finished worse than second since, well, I mean, like, he finished 8th or whatever at San Diego, but since he won at Anaheim too, he's been first, second, first, second, first, second, like, just all the way through. And really, I feel that's kind of gnarly because I've felt that Baggett and Musquin probably had the speed on him in Atlanta, and Musquin definitely had the speed on him this week at Daytona, to the point where, you know, Musquin had Webb covered and then stalled, and then Webb got around him, and Musquin was, I don't know, 5 seconds behind Webb and just caught right back up to him. He couldn't figure out how to pass him. Webb definitely raised the bar in that level, but at the same point, I do think that Musquin was the faster rider on track, and he just still held him off, no problem. Like, it wasn't ever really kind of in doubt. I never saw Musquin dive down the inside and make things interesting, or, you know, get Webb freaked out or get inside of his head or anything like that. It was just Webb's all the way through. So, I mean, that was all I need to know about Webb. Like I said last week, is he's got this thing so on lock in his own head that is unbelievably dangerous for everybody else. Like, how are you gonna beat that if every week Webb looks like he may be the 4th fastest guy on the track, but he's getting second, and he may be the 3rd fastest guy on the track, but he wins the race, or, you know, whatever. Like, he's just been so solid, so solid. I don't think he's gonna finish 1st or 2nd from here on out. Like, I think he's gonna have a bad race. It's bound to happen, but I don't think that Tomac is not going to have a bad race from here on out. I don't think that Marvin is not going to have a bad race from here on out. I think they're all still due for at least one more. So then that, you know, still puts Webb in a pretty good position, 19 points up, 21 up on Kenny. And, like, man, at this point, it's so hard for me to paint a picture any different than Webb holding a #1 at the end of the season. And I do believe Tomac has the ability to click off wins, but I feel like people are acting as if, like, Tomac is going to win out from here. It's not really the case. It hasn't proven to be true this year at all, and it really wasn't proven to be true in past years either. He didn't win out in 2017 or 2018 from Daytona. He had issues late in the season both times, so, like, Webb is in a pretty damn good spot, in my opinion. I'm not on the Webb wagon yet. I am still... I'm running next to it. I'm thinking about jumping on it. I really am. I'm like, oh, man, my legs are getting tired from running all this way, just trying to hold up the wagon for the rest of the people to come along and maybe make things interesting late in the series. But shoot, that Webb wagon is starting to run a little rampant, and I'm thinking about sprinting up ahead and jumping on top of that thing, man. I'll tell you what, it is crazy to see, crazy to believe that whatever, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I would have never, ever, ever considered something like this happening. Ever. Like, just the way that Webb was on a Yamaha, and it didn't look like he came into this year and was immediately miles better or anything like that. Yeah, he got 5th at the opener, but he finished up with a 10th the next week at Glendale. Like, nothing pointed to this happening. Nothing. And yeah, you can point to KTM and Alden Baker and all the same blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, until he was suspended for his drug test violation, it wasn't like Brock Tickle went from being a, 5th to 7th place guy to finishing 2nd and 3rd and all this business on the team. So Webb is something else, man. He has figured out the magical recipe, and it's pretty incredible to me. And I really do think he's going to win this championship at this point. 7 rounds to go. Points lead where it is. I need to see something drastic to change my mind on that at this point. So I'm thinking about it. I really am. I'm pretty close. I'm looking at the Webb wagon. I want to jump on board, but just for the sake of keeping the series interesting, I'm running alongside and yelling, "Hold up! Hold up!" Don't go yet. Don't leave the city yet. I'm still waiting. But we'll see. Obviously, Indy coming up next weekend is going to be a good one to watch. Usually dirt there that breaks down pretty bad, and it creates a pretty ruddy technical track, which seems to have been suiting Musquin lately. And golly, man, I think Marvin's about to win one of these races sooner or later. He just has to. He's been riding so darn good. Just has to. I don't know how he hasn't won a race yet. It's ridiculous. Same goes for Kenny. But yeah, that's 450s in a nutshell. Quickly hopping into the 250s because we've got about 5 minutes left in this video. Is Forkner going to win out from here? Is he going to technically go undefeated East Coast Series wise? Like, yes, he didn't win the showdown. However, he didn't lose any points on the East guys then because he beat all the East guys at the showdown. So it's like he's still kind of undefeated. Not really, but, you know, on some level I would say that you could say that. And man, does he look good. He has looked so solid in the races, ridiculously wild and out of control in practice, but in the races he's been great. Like, what else can you say? He gets great starts, he pulls away early, makes sure his gap is safe, doesn't worry about it late. I mean, like, he got a good start, and then Sexton quickly moved up and into second behind him, and then he just dropped him like 6 seconds, like bye-bye. And then late in the race, you know, it stayed close. It wasn't like he pulled out to like an 80-second win. He still was only 6 or 7 seconds ahead at the end. But you know what that reminds me of a lot is kind of McGrath. That style of winning where you get a good start and you sprint hard for like 10 laps. And you just like ride balls out and you just get a big gap. And then the last 10, you're like, dude, I just got to do 10 laps of practice lap tracks. Like, we're just out at the compound in Oklahoma right now, putting in the work, just putting down the laps. And that's basically what he did at Daytona. And it's just whole shot, or get up front early, I should say, sprint, get a big lead, cruise. So, I mean, that's McGrath in a nutshell. It's 72 victories, and most of them looked like that for Jeremy. And gosh, man, his technical ability on the bike is just incredible. Like, some of the things he was doing even during press day, the 450 guys were like, nah, I'm good. I'll pass. And Forkner's just like, I got this. Like, you know, 3 in, quad over, quad this, quad that. He's just doing like every big line you can think of. And on some level, it scares you a little bit because it's like, hold on there, buckaroo. You don't need to be doing these humongous lines until the gate actually drops. Like, you know, why don't you just take press day for what it is like a, let's learn the track and figure out where I could do some cool things, but not necessarily put down burners right now. That's kind of what he seemed like he was doing on press day. But yeah, like he's just doing some stuff that not many guys on a 250F have ever done, and it's pretty incredible to watch. And on top of that, like, you'd think, oh, you know, he's just on a step above the rest. I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. Chase Sexton has been matching him pace-wise. He's doing similar lap times. They both got away pretty far in the main event, but Forkner's just, in the race, he's just that little tick better. Just a little bit. It's not a lot, but it's just enough to get him these gaps that he can manage and not have to like kind of ride over his head late in the race when maybe he's more fatigued. Like, it's a really good strategy to do what he's doing because you're using like your body and your mentality and all that when it's at the freshest. Like, the gate just dropped, your adrenaline is high, and your body isn't fatigued from riding for 15 minutes straight. So you're putting in motos, just getting away, and then that's what they go to train for is to do these like late race charges. And he doesn't have to do them. He just has to put in the motos late in the race, which is kind of what they do most of the time anyway if they're out there training at the farm or wherever. So he, like I said, he just has the recipe for success right now. He's got the starts, he's got the racecraft, he's got everything. And that's a tough combo to beat right now. Sexton is doing a good job. Got to give Justin Cooper credit too because he keeps landing on the podium to kind of keep things interesting. But man, it is tough pickings to find a reason why Forkner is going to lose this championship right now, especially that he's already almost a race distance up. Like, he has the potential to clinch this thing before it even gets to the other East-West showdown in Vegas, which is huge because then you don't have to worry about any sort of like craziness happening or, you know, weird stuff. Like, it's just, no, go have a joyride in Vegas basically. So yeah, lots of interesting concepts behind Forkner. Let's see, what else could I talk about from that class? my friends and I are kind of adamantly watching this whole Alex Martin, Martin Davalos situation unfold. If any of you like diehard moto heads listen to podcasts, there's a pretty good chance you listen to the Pulp MX show, which is Steve Mathis and all them guys over there. And he made a deal with Mitch Payton, or a bet or whatever. And Mitch Payton is the owner of Pro Circuit Kawasaki, that Alex Martin would beat Martin Davalos in the championship, not necessarily in a race, but in the championship. And if Amart beats Davalos in the championship, then Mitch Payton has to go up and co-host a 5-hour episode of the Pulp MX show with Steve Mathis. And if Davalos beats Amart in the championship, then Mathis has to go down to Pro Circuit in Corona and like clean the shop and I guess buy lunch or something like that. So it's kind of like a funny little bet, but it's actually turned out to be like kind of serious, because Davalos and Amart seem to find each other every week on the track. They hit each other at the opening round at Minneapolis. Amart plowed into Davalos, and then this past week, Davalos actually was like charging forward, got up into 5th, I think it was, and then halfway through the race, threw the anchor off the edge of the board there and decided to drag that thing in the ground, and Amart and Brandon Hart ramped, got back by. I thought someone else did, maybe Kyle Peters or somebody. And yeah, Davalos is having a tough go of it there late in the race. But now Amart and Davalos are like 6 points apart in the championship, and it's kind of a funny battle to watch. But anyway, that's just kind of further stuff going on down the field and all that business. But anyway, this Daytona track, again, if you guys want to try it out for yourself, is 19 Daytona, and then a dash, and then SYS if you guys want to try it. I don't know if it's really that great or really that bad or anything like that. It's just a track I made and figured I'd show it off on the review today. So hope you guys enjoyed the video as always, and let's open up some bench racing discussion in the comments section below, and I'll meet you guys down there for some fun moto talk. So thanks for watching another video here on SYS. My name's Kellen, and I'll see you in the next one. So long for now.